In 1959, when the founders of the Copa Libertadores, the people in charge of what was going on in CONMEBOL at that time, they had one thing in mind, and it was being able to give tribute to the individuals that really created this new part of the world, this newer part of the world, or newer based on the Western culture, if you will. They wanted to give tribute to the leaders, those individuals that helped free the Spanish-speaking countries that became eventually South America. And what better way to do so than to call a tournament the Copa Libertadores, the Liberators' Cup, a tournament that really gave tribute to those individuals that sacrificed their lives. Some of them didn't really become, they became famous, they had a reputation, but many of them ended up living it in rather dire conditions, financial and economically, because a lot of times their finances were so involved, they were so invested in the possibility of creating those new countries or creating those new ways of life and constitutions and everything else, that they ended up in many cases being very poor. Some of these founding fathers, if you will. And a lot of those names ended up being quite prevalent in the history of South American folklore and South American history. And you fast forward 60 years. Of course, the world has changed dramatically. The world has really seen major changes. If you just see the difference between 2013 to now, and there's drastic changes. Imagine from 1959, 1960 to now. Of course, the game's more commercialized. The game is more marketed. Everything else you want to add to that. And that really ends up making the difference. But the essence of the game, the identity of the game in the region that it comes from, seems to have lost a great deal of itself today. It's funny to hear, or of course, a lot of it had to do with the irony of it all. The Libertadores being played in Spain, a tournament that's named after those individuals that freed themselves from Spain, playing a tournament final in Spain. Of course, I say that in jest because of how everything came out, the irony behind it, everything else that has emerged because of it is so comical, pretty much like this entire process has been. The way this tournament has been managed, the way Alejandro Domínguez has managed everything. And hearing him, it just seems unbelievable. You hear what has been said and the decisions that have been made. And if you're for and against the match being suspended, that's fine. But keep in mind that the people that were making the decisions to suspend or not suspend River, which ended up being rather light suspension, if you want to look at it from that perspective, 2 matches and $400,000. A bit light, but still, it doesn't matter. If you also want to look at the disciplinary board, all of them were signed up by Alejandro Domínguez. So you knew right there, whatever decision, if it was going to be River, if it was going to be Boca, they were going to try and be as Solomonic as possible in order to make a decision where they can wash their hands easily and say, hey, we did what we could. And we can talk about love and peace, and we can talk about how they over in Argentina are the bad ones, and we're the ones that are trying to fix this, and we're the ones that are creating as much as we possibly can in order to solve a problem that they over there have created. And yes, they have created over there. They have been able to make a mess of the biggest tournament in the area, probably with the biggest matchup that you could possibly have. That's on Argentina. There's no two ways about it. Where people have to be bothered is the way CONMEBOL did it. Where people have to be bothered is that this entire sequence of events has created a bidding process. It's created this whole entire situation where instead of really worrying for the well-being of these players, of these individuals that have looked to really create a difference in the game, that have looked to make a significant contribution to the respective clubs and be able to enhance the game of football outside of winning and losing and giving their all, CONMEBOL hasn't worried anything about it. Although Alejandro Domínguez has said, "Oh yeah, we worried about the players." No, you're not. If you were worried about the players, you would have been able to find a way to play in a more comfortable situation. If you were willing to make the sacrifice to make this happen in South America, you could have. But instead, it became a bidding process, and you were yucking it up as much as possible. We had heard about Asunción, we had heard about Madrid, not Madrid, but we had heard about Abu Dhabi, we had heard about Doha, we had heard about Miami, Medellin, all these other places where the match could be played. But this is how things work. There's confusion. I found out through a WhatsApp at 11 o'clock in the morning today. Nobody knew Madrid. Everybody's, hey, all of a sudden Madrid. Boom. Madrid's official. Madrid became official in the span of hours. Fridays? It took like 4 or 5 days to decide. Madrid took a matter of hours. Hours. How come this didn't happen before? Oh, I forgot. The bidding process. This is all part of the new CONMEBOL. The new CONMEBOL that's transparent, and there's nothing else that we can really look at, but we're going to have to be able to do as best as we can because we're the new CONMEBOL. We're transparency. We're change. We're the ones that are looking to make things clean. You're not. No, you're not. And it's disappointing. It's not even upsetting. It's disappointing. Because for years I've talked about how this tournament is so much more exciting than the Champions League in my eyes. But I can't go and say that with a straight face anymore. I can't go and tell somebody that. I'd be lying. I'd be lying to someone if I told them that right now. Because there's no seriousness. There's nothing that really offers me a sense of being secure about my statement anymore. It's part of that disappointment that I feel. It's part of that letdown. That I don't care anymore who wins this tournament. If Boca wins it, okay, well, whatever. If River wins it, who cares? Because it is tainted. It is tainted because of not the players, I'm sorry. But because of the administrators, because of the Angelicis, because of the Donofrios and Alejandro Domínguez and everyone in the disciplinary tribunal and everyone else that has been involved in this. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to come across. And it makes it very difficult to really go and talk about things in a sincere manner anymore. Because South American football is pretty much taken, I don't know if it's a death knell, but it's taken a huge hit. It's going to leave a lot of consequences going from here on out. Because we're talking about just solving one little problem, but there's going to be all these other little problems that are going to emerge, and no one's going to be able to have answers to those little problems, and those little problems become bigger problems as we go. And that's been the story throughout the past 2, maybe even 3 decades. Do not be disappointed. Do not be upset if you start seeing Barra Bravas flying to Madrid, because that's exactly what happens. That's what exactly happens all the time. It's happened with the Argentine national team, and it happens with these teams in Copa Libertadores every single time they have to go and play abroad. The average person, the average fan, the average citizen, they have to pay big money to be able to go and follow their team. This scum of the earth, the Barra Bravas, don't. They demand, they extort, and they find ways. Look, let's be honest. You could be as cynical as possible. And you could even say, you know what? It's very probable that they could probably even print their own tickets and fly over there. They found a set of printers at the Estadio Monumental in a secret room that printed out over 300 tickets with names of college students that weren't even members of the club. So what makes you think that I'm not going to believe that? That I'm going to think that that's not going to be able to happen? That they're not going to be able to find a way to leave the country legally, and if they don't have a passport, find a passport quickly. They've been in cahoots with the government. They've been in cahoots with everybody that has power in Argentina. What makes you think that they're not going to be able to go and see see River Plate and Boca in Madrid and have a nice vacation while they're at it, at the club's dime, at AFA's dime, at people's dime? If it's River Plate, even Boca Juniors too, let's not kid that it's just one team. Let's not just kid that it's two teams. Let's not just kid that it's 5 or 6 people. Let's not kid that it's 20, 30. It's thousands of people that are involved in this. Thousands. Because they're part of the epidemic. They're part of the problem in the game. And their affiliations outside of the game. I've said it already before, and I don't want to tire you out. But this is the reality of the game in South America because of the ties. I mean, the Barra Bravas in certain areas earn merchandising profits, commissions. Some of them earn revenue off of parking. Some of them through concessions. Some of them through branding. Give me a break. These guys are criminals. Yet the clubs have enabled this. And do not be surprised if they're in Madrid. Will they fight? Maybe. Maybe not. Because they know they're all in that together. So do not be surprised if they're, buddy palling around even. Do not be surprised if they fight each other too. It's just part of the game. And that is where this entire thing gets disappointing. Because it's the River fans that got screwed. The River fans are the ones that got screwed. The ones that had to pay, and knowing how the whole situation with inflation and the sacrifices many had to make in order to go to that game, all of a sudden they find themselves screwed because you know what? One of the conditions that this Madrid bid did not have was reimbursement. So at this point, it's very possible as time goes by, you might not see a solution to that. I hope there is a solution, mind you. I hope they're able to solve this problem for those fans that can't go for one reason or another, or many reasons or others. But the probability is that they might not get refunded, or they might just get credit for another game. That's where things are going. That is the problem, ladies and gentlemen, with this whole thing. And I can't preach the positives without pointing the negatives as well, and vice versa. I can't do that because I'd be lying to you. And yes, the folklore is nice and beautiful, and the romanticism of it all is great. But let's not keep blinding ourselves, or let me not lie to you that there are problems that are very deep. And in this final, they emerged. And it was this final that helped it emerge because you knew it was coming at one point or another. Something like this was going to emerge because of how big this was. That's the reality of it, and people need to understand it. And I hope that they're able to in the future.